To see you, Ross. It's been too long. Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the BAMF podcast. I'm Mike Lafferty. Here's Ross Watson. Here's Jacob. And here is our contractually mandated musical opening. Once again, ladies and gents, that assures you that this is a high production values podcast. Only the finest, ethically sourced geeky conversation for your podcast listening pleasure. Once again, Ross Watson from Star Animal Studios, right over here. Good evening, Ross.
Hello.
And right down here we have Jacob Blackman.
Good evening.
From freelance illustrator from various companies, including Evil Genius Games.
Very talented freelance illustrator.
Well, I've only done a couple of pieces for them, but it was a wonderful experience.
And we're here tonight to talk about various geeky things, including, Jacob, can you show it?
The ROM Omnibus.
Woo!
It's a beefy, hardback book.
I'm so excited about this.
Reprints of ROM comics that have not been seen in God, how long? Like maybe 50 years? 40?
40 at the bare minimum. 40 at the bare minimum.
Yeah, this comic started before I was born. And it was continuing after I had started getting into comics because it was really popular.
79.
Back in the day.
Started in 79.
Oh, started in 79? So I was born. Okay. I was just baby.
I was 4.
It started when I was baby. I was 2 years old. So yeah, but it was pretty popular because I remember seeing ROM comics on the shelves when I started getting into getting into comics. So yeah, it had a really good run, a really decent run, long run, and it interacted quite a bit with the standard Marvel universe and brought a lot of really neat lore and additional outer space things from into the Marvel universe. So
I literally cannot wait to talk about this.
Yeah.
If no one objects, I'm going to share the old Parker Brothers commercial just to give context to maybe some of our younger viewers who might not be aware of.
Yeah, that ROM is a licensed product.
You can imagine he comes from another galaxy with his flashing neutralizer. Activate ROM.
It was supposed to be an educational toy. It was one of the first toys that featured LED lights from what I've done in my research.
9-volt battery not included. ROM, the Space Knight, an electronic toy new from Parker Brothers.
I never had the toy. I never met anybody who had the toy.
Mm-hmm.
The toy was frankly kind of boring.
I had the toy.
And it never came. It was part of the action. It was part of the Action Man series, and it never came with any. It never came with any enemies or anything. They only produced ROM, despite all the background and lore that was packaged on the box for who ROM was and what he did in outer space.
There wasn't any lore, Jacob. It's really basic. But please, Mike, you were saying you had the toy.
It's just Mike's version of the Wonder Years. I love this toy. Play with a lot. One time some kids came by my house, wanted to play with me, and I was like, I don't really feel like playing. Like, well, can we play with your ROM then? And I loaned him my ROM. They dropped it on the sidewalk, and ROM was never quite right again. His eyes were always,
Oh.
So
that sucks.
It's a heartache that endures to this day. But so that's ROM. And the way things happened back in the late 70s, early 80s, they decided to do a licensed comic with Marvel, as Jacob said. And they just fucking ran with it at Marvel. Go ahead.
So here's the thing. There was a particular writer at Marvel who got all the crazy licenses.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Bill Mantlo.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically anything that was like weird or unusual or a license, they would give to Bill Mantlo. Now, you would know Bill Mantlo is one of the creators of Rocket Raccoon, because he was the writer for the original series along with Hellboy artist Mike Mignola. And he also wrote the Micronauts license series, which was awesome. Now, unlike Micronauts, unlike Transformers, unlike G.I. Joe, as Jacob pointed out, there wasn't anything for Rom to fight. There wasn't any real lore. He was just a toy. And so Mantlo had to create everything. He had to create Rom's backstory, Rom's enemies, the reason, Rom's mission. He had to create all that shit.
Well, they pretty much had to do the same with G.I. Joe and Transformers. For the large part, when they got the Transformers license, it was just a collection of toys.
Right,
the people at Marvel created the whole, it's
right.
Autobots and Decepticons, and here's all their names.
Right, but to be clear, G.I. Joe and Transformers were creations from the entire bullpen. They weren't just one guy. Whereas Mantlo was like, here. Now, Hama eventually did run G.I. Joe as a one guy, but when Shooter handed the IP over to him, they had a fully developed, like, here's Cobra, here's G.I. Joe, all that stuff. Rom was not like that. Rom was very distinct in that he was, here's a toy, Bill, see what you can do with it. On his own.
And it was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. Jesus.
Yeah, so I have never read any ROM comics.
Oh, never?
No. Getting this is the first time I've had the chance to actually read the comics. But now I have, because I am a general comic reader and I know comic fans, and especially fans of ROM, I absorbed his lore through comic book as osmosis, like I do with a lot of titles that I've never read before. We were just talking about this when we were talking with Steve about Valiant comics. I've never read any Valiant comics, but I know the characters and I know the stuff because I talk to other people who do. But yeah, Rom has a really great background. He is a space knight from another planet called Galador. And they were a peaceful society who was all about bringing peace, technology, and medicine and goodwill across space and to worlds that they have never encountered before. And then they encountered an unknown part of space called the Dark Nebula. And from the Dark Nebula came the Dire Wraiths, a effectively demonic race of shape-shifting, techno-magical aliens.
I got to say something right here. The Dire Wraiths, they're, like Jacob just said, they're shape-shifting witches from outer space, which is so goddamn rad. I can't even express just how rad that is.
But to counter the threat, the Dire Wraiths were such a threat to this civilization that they asked for volunteers from their planet, and all these people, hundreds of people, came forward and were transformed into cybernetic warriors called the Space Knights.
Now here's where the lore differentiates from the toy.
Mm-hmm.
Remember how I said the toy hardly has any lore?
Mm-hmm.
The toy says he's a robot.
Yeah.
But Mantlo's like, no. He's a cyborg. He's a person who gave up his body to do this. And actually, that's kind of like a huge part of Rom's story is the fact that he gave up humanity, his humanity, to defend his people.
Yes. And so he has been pursuing the Dire Wraiths for, it's been 200 years since he was transformed into a cyborg, and there's a lot to suggest he is the last of the from the few issues I've read so far, that he's like the last of the Space Knights potentially, but we'll see how that goes. And yeah, he comes to Earth, and wackiness ensues as he starts to find Dire Wraiths hiding on Earth. And their civilization is literally so dedicated to peace, much like the Kryptonians of DC, that they don't kill the Dire Wraiths. They have a weapon that sends them to an extra dimensional prison that they call Limbo, that he blasts the dire wraiths.
It's really important to point out here, though. There's two things. First, he's got an analyzer that tells him who is in fact a dire wraith and who is just a normal human. But secondly, and this is, I stress this is very important, when he uses the neutralizer to send them to this alternate dimension, basically the Phantom Zone, it looks like it kills them in a horrific manner.
Yeah, it looks like it disintegrates them because little piles of dust are left behind.
Right, and this is part of the issue with ROM is when he arrives on Earth, he doesn't go around explaining to people, hey, it's really just a transport device. No, he'll just like scan some random person on the street and then blast them, and you'll see this person-shaped pile of dust, and everybody's like, oh my God, what did you just do?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to spoil a little bit for you, Jacob, but there is an issue, Power Man and Iron Fist number 73, possibly the greatest comic book of all time.
No, it's included in the ROM Omnibus.
Because what happens in Power Man and Iron Fist 73 is ROM is on his way to something and then like scans a random hooker on the side of the street, finds out the hooker is in fact a dire wraith, sends her to the zone, which it looks like it disintegrates her, and her pimp hires Iron Fist to go beat up ROM with karate.
Yeah.
Because he's
a hero for hire.
Right, exactly. Which, like I said, is probably the greatest comic book story ever written.
He will cast your glimpse upon the shared screen. You will, I think this is either the first or second incidence of ROM ever banishing someone to Limbo.
Right, so Limbo. That's what it's called, Limbo. Yeah.
And you can tell it's a wraith because there's that weird guy who looks like a Soggy from Captain Crunch commercials. He's like floating out of the guy, as he gets shot with the neutralizer. But it looks like he's dead, right?
Very.
Yeah.
Like extremely dead.
And
the robots disintegrated poor Carson. Sound the retreat. So
and this comic book is full of just classic misdirection, gaslighting marvelisms. Because in the first issue, ROM encounters a woman and tells her what's going on. There are aliens on your planet. I am here to try to protect humanity from these evil aliens. They nearly destroyed my society, and I'm trying to prevent that from happening to humans. And no one's listening to her. She is trying desperately to tell other people that ROM is actually good. And they're like, oh, you sweet, poor little dear child. How can you think these things? How can you defend a monstrous alien robot against humans? They are just gaslighting her to hell.
So ROM it's important also for the audience to understand ROM had a big impact on Marvel Comics. He was not just a guest star who showed up. He did not just have his own comic where he did his own things and we never saw him again.
Yeah.
Kind of like G.I. Joe and Transformers. No, ROM's neutralizer was studied by Forge, who then used it against Storm, which removed Storm's powers. If you remember the period of time where Storm had no powers and a big silver mohawk, that's because of ROM. And Rogue was inspired to become a hero by ROM. Without ROM, we don't have Rogue as a hero, and we don't have Storm's period where she has no powers. So those are not, I think I would argue, those are not small moments for the X-Men.
Yeah. No, it's I did a cursory flip through, and I saw that there are several issues in here featuring the X-Men. I saw that the Iron Man, the Power Man and Iron Fist issue is also in here. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the crossovers and all that. That's going to be fun.
So
while eventually they did lose the license for ROM, they did still keep the Space Knight lore and the Dire Wraith lore, that is all still Marvel canon.
There's a very interesting person who shows up at Rick Jones's wedding.
Mhm.
And this person has long black hair, and his wife is named Brandy, and he wishes Rick Jones well at Rick Jones's wedding. And if there's ever any doubt that Rom was not like a big part of Marvel Comics, Rick Jones was his sidekick for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Rick Jones was sidekick to everyone back in the
true.
60s, 70s, and 80s.
But he made a Rom, even though he's never named, shows up at Rick's wedding, which I think is a big deal. I was like, oh, that's so cool. So the character is still kind of around. Like his name is Arthur now, like King Arthur. But yeah, so he's still technically kind of there, but they don't ever say the word Rom anymore. If they, I guess maybe
that's what you said. That's because they lost.
Now.
Yeah, they lost the license. As far as I know, they're only able to do the reprints because because Marvel still has those rights. They can reprint their comics, but they can't use the character in any new one. But like I said, they still have Space Knights, and they had this picture right here that Mike is showing. That is a modern Marvel comic just from a few years ago where Space Knights showed up.
She was created by Dan Abnett. She showed up when he was writing all of Marvel Cosmic for a while.
Abnett and Lanning.
Abnett and Lanning. This is true. But just so why are we talking about Rob? The Omnibus is out. You can buy it right now on Amazon.
Yeah.
Digital, $50, about twice as much in hard copy. But it's an awesome book. So check it out.
It's 30 issues of comics.
Yeah.
And it's rad. ROM is freaking rad. If you like 80s era comics, you're gonna love. And I will say again, Bill Mantlo is kind of a genius. He wrote some extremely good stories about this toy that had hardly any information about it whatsoever. Mantlo is one of my favorite writers, so I love seeing him getting an omnibus out of his stuff so people can experience what his writing was like.
Does the omnibus have all the ads from the early 80s?
No, it just has the comic pages.
Oh, okay.
I was noticing when you were flipping through, I saw they have the hostess stuff in there. No, none of that is in here. It's just the comic pages.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Should also mention Sal Buscema is the artist who did most of this. I'm sure Jacob would appreciate.
I am very familiar with Sal Buscema's art. I love Sal Buscema's work.
Yeah.
So maybe you guys know. You're into comics. You're into comics behind the scenes stuff. There have been ROM comics in the last 10 years. By a couple of IDW. Yeah. Why? Maybe Marvel just didn't want the license anymore. I don't know, but it would seem like bringing him back to Marvel, even just for a short miniseries.
All the Hasbro licenses at the time were in IDW's hand. They created a shared universe that had G.I. Joe, Micronauts, ROM, Transformers. They had a whole thing going on. Later on, they pretty much stopped with the other characters because they weren't as popular. They stopped doing Micronauts. They stopped doing ROM. But they kept doing Transformers and G.I. Joe because those were the popular franchises.
Well, there's a very simple and easy reason why ROM and Micronauts are not popular outside of the Marvel Comics. Their stories suck.
Yeah.
And if Hasbro didn't have its head completely up its ass, they would probably pull something like Sony and make a deal with Marvel where they're like, here, put ROM and the Micronauts, do whatever you want with them. Use the storylines you guys created. We'll just take a cut of it, or we'll just make the merch while you advertise the shit out of these products. Because the Micronauts are super cool. ROM is super cool. And Marvel was just an expert at turning toys into something interesting and fun. I mean, that's where Secret Wars came from, was a toy line. That's where Micronauts, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I loved what they did with a bare bones concept and turned it into like truly impressive storytelling. If you guys want to have you want to spend about 30 minutes reading about some really fun things about ROM, check out the TV Tropes page for ROM the Space Knight.
Okay. Going to share this tab from Jacob of Gan, Astral Knight, from his Superpower Legends series, which is quite similar to the character we're talking about, but for copyright purposes, completely distinct.
Legally distinct.
Thanks. Yeah.
Legally distinct, and it is not a Star Knight. You know, he's got a completely different thing going on. He's got a little more. It is not so much a person who is volunteered for cybernetic surgery. It is an alien who is transformed by a cosmic godlike being into a cybernetic being, and hunts evil aliens, not just dire wraiths, but all sorts of evil aliens, you know, because he is good, and that it doesn't focus on one racist species.
So
He helps all sorts of people, and goes after all sorts of different evil aliens.
So he's like a heroic predator.
Yeah.
Something I should point out is that ROM, of course, as a toy, came with these big, bulky accessories. He came with the translator, he came with the neutralizer, he came with something else. And they were all these big, boxy things. Analyzer, I think.
Yeah.
Mantlo, when he was writing ROM, explained that ROM was a prototype Space Knight. And when the Space Knights eventually do show up, and they do, they're still around, spoiler alert, all of that stuff is actually built in to the later versions. So when you see other Space Knights, they're not packing these giant accessories because it's built into their armor.
But yeah, if you want to create a general robotic heroic space alien who fights evil aliens for your game, for your Mutants Masterminds game, I've got Gan the Astral Knight available as Superpowered Legends character. We've also got him available as an iconic Legends character if you want to play for icons.
Indeed, we do. You guys, look at the screen right now. I'm sharing a page from Kindle. Have either of you ever seen a copy of Grit?
No.
This magazine you could sell, get a coupon from Marvel Comics and sell Grit and make pocket money. I don't know if this magazine actually ever existed. I just remember these commercials. This is targeted at poor broke kids, and say, hey, you need some pocket money? Then send away this coupon and get some copies of our magazine.
America's greatest family newspaper since 1882. I am skeptical about this.
Huh.
So yeah, this was Jacob. You didn't. Oh, you're youngin'. You would never. Have seen
I've never seen anything like that.
Okay.
They my school tried to make us sell magazines, but
I should take a moment to say that Jacob's Superpowered Legends book is fantastic, and it does include a lot of legally distinct characters that you will recognize, but are nevertheless extremely well illustrated and are given backstories that can fit into just about any superhero campaign. I am a proud owner, and I will unhesitatingly recommend anyone who's a superhero fan who wants RPG guys to do it.
Indeed. Thank you.
I like the one you had for Tom Cruise, but you call him Com-Trues. That was kind of fun. Like if you want Tom Cruise to show up in your Mutants Masterminds game, you can just have Com-Trues show up and start talking about Scientology. I think that was a fun addition to the line. Am I wrong?
As the writer of Superpowered Legends, I do not remember this character.
Yeah, he starred in that film, Bisky Rizness.
I gotta say, it's a shame they don't have all the ads that we have in here.
Yeah,
because they're missing out.
Those old ads and everything, those are nostalgic. But
the ROM ad
is easy enough to find old comic books. You can probably hunt down some old comics from your local comic stores like 50-cent or dollar bin and get some and find a comic that has old ads in it. They are a trip to read through sometimes.
For a hoot, bring up that ROM ad and let's read it, because it is.
I just want to point out that we never find out what happens to June Jitsu. This is her own appearance, only appearance as far as I know. I want to know more, don't you guys?
Well,
okay.
in my mind, she is a member of the Hand. So
here's the ROM ad.
Yeah, let's boost that up so we can read it, because it is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
New electronic action toy.
From outer space to the pages of Marvel Comics, to your toy store comes the mighty champion of justice and truth, the greatest of all space knights, ROM.
Has come. Evil is on the run. ROM's energy analyzer lights up bright red and makes strange electronic sounds. Pretend it allows ROM to see if creatures are good or evil.
ROM's translator makes eerie electronic sounds and lights. Imagine ROM has the ability to communicate with any intelligent being in the universe. ROM's weapon is the neutralizer. It flashes and makes electronic zapping sounds. Pretend it sends evil creatures to the shadow zone.
I like how they're telling you how to play with the toy. It's very, very instructive. This is how you play with ROM, people.
So yeah, it was kind of fun. So, well, let me stop sharing. So, have we mined the vein of ROM comics as completely as we want to, or is there more ROM to talk about?
I have said my pieces about ROM.
Yeah, we've pretty much set it up. If you want to know more about ROM, go get the Omnibus. I'm sure otherwise, if you want, I'm sure the IDW comics are out there and available to download in PDF or Comixology, whatever you got. Yeah, enjoy some ROM.
I'm gonna wager. I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna wager that IDW comics do not have a pimp hiring a superhero to take down ROM with karate.
I guarantee you they do not.
And that is a shame, sir. A dirty shame. You are robbed of that.
I think that lets us know what IDW might be lacking in the comics right now. But they don't have
I've gone through. I'm up to 2 or 3 issues in this, and already there's a major conspiracy because there's a point where you see dire wraiths in the Pentagon. That's how far they've infiltrated human society, and we even see dire wraiths in and among S.H.I.E.L.D. So the threat is real. If ROM was going on in Marvel, it would honestly be a huge event.
No, I have to agree. I mean, they kind of do what they do with their Skrulls at one point, but I don't know if you remember this. You did this for me, so long ago, let's not even say. But Trontis was also inspired by a certain Parker Brothers electronic toy, although I won't say which. And he was in the Great Game for both Icons and Mutants and Masterminds.
I didn't do that piece, but I did do the big splash piece. That's
you didn't do this one? I thought this was you.
I did do a splash piece that's in that book, where that Trontis is featured in.
Let me find that one. Oh, here we go.
That's it.
Yeah, hang on, fit page. Yeah, and this is our version of the dire wraiths down here in the corner, and that's our version of the Red Lanterns up there, and that's Trontis fighting out. Yeah,
I forgot. There's one other Marvel connection.
Uh-huh.
Do you guys remember the New Warriors?
I do remember the New Warriors.
Do you remember Torpedo?
Mm-hmm.
Torpedo was a member of the New Warriors, and she was a descendant of Torpedo from ROM Comics, which was a Earth hero who wore a suit that enabled him to fly and ram into things at high speed. And he helped ROM fight the dire wraiths. So his influence carries on.
I'm curious. Did Jack of Hearts show up first in ROM, or was he first a Captain Marvel character?
I don't know. I'm going to guess Captain Marvel, but I don't know.
All right. Because I know he showed up in a Marvel Space Hero comic as an antagonist, not necessarily a villain, but as an antagonist.
I could say more about ROM, but I'd really be spoiling things for you, Jacob. And I don't know if that's something you.
I don't. We're here to talk about ROM. I don't mind spoilers.
So for fun, I will tell you how ROM ends up dealing with the Dire Wraiths.
Okay.
He leads Galactus to the Dark Nebula.
Oh.
And says,
no.
"Hey, go chow down, buddy."
Okay.
And Galactus is like, "Who is this silver farer of the spaceways? Why is he? Oh, it must be my herald. He's leading me to this. Oh, delicious. Thank you." Matlow went way out there for some of his writing.
That's awesome.
So in 2007, 2008, oh my God, so long ago now, another Andy Lanning and Dan Abnett event, Marvel Annihilation Conquest. This is when the Phalanx and Ultron try to take over the galaxy, and the Guardians of the Galaxy stop them. But the way they get in is kind of like the beginning of the new Battlestar Galactica. On Hala, the Kree homeworld. Oh, how will I ever get laid if I know all this comics material? This is terrible.
Aren't you married?
You're married with a kid.
Well, yeah, but I mean, after all these words come out of my mouth, she's right there. She can hear me talking. And anyway, so the Galadorians are on Hala, and it's after the previous Annihilation event, which is either Annihilus or Thanos or both. Anyway, so the Galadorians are helping the Kree set up more security, strengthen their firewalls, put in some antivirus protection, whatever. But the Phalanx has gotten a virus to the Galadorians first. And then they push out this neurobiological virus to everybody in the Kree Empire. And then Ultron tries to take over. But you don't find out it's Ultron to like the very last issue. So spoiler alert for a 15, 18-year-old comic. So
yeah, Annihilation was wild.
I really wish they would do some animated films focusing on that storyline.
They're never going to do it. So much better than what was going on Earth at the time. Because what was happening on Earth at the time? Civil War. Civil War, which was generally reviled. Meanwhile, there's this amazing epic space stuff happening.
Well, what they had was none of the suits at Marvel gave a shit about what's happening out in the cosmic world. Yeah. So those guys creating that stuff had kind of a free reign to do whatever they wanted to without, hotlines being mandated. So, and I won't argue with you about Civil War being reviled because lots of folks do hate it, but there were some cool moments hidden amongst the garbage in there.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with that. Civil War is worth a conversation on this very podcast, actually.
You can do it next Sunday if you want. So, did you like Civil War? Did you not like Civil War?
I think it was a fascinating exercise in storytelling. Not all of it is great. Just like there's probably no crossover event that's absolutely perfect except for Crisis on Infinite Earths.
The X-Men were neutral in a event where there was going to be superhero registration.
Right. That wasn't
that well. Right there is bullshit.
It was not handled. I agree. That was not handled well. But there are things with Civil War that are really cool and were well done. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
You know how they picked the ending for that?
Threw a dart at the board, decide who won.
Close. They were having a big meeting, and for some of these big events, you get a bunch of writers in a room, sort of like you do in a TV writer's room. And they weren't going to have a conclusive ending. There wasn't going to be, Captain America won or Iron Man won. It was just going to be things kind of petered out. And Joss Whedon was in the room, and he said, "Nope, someone has to win. It's called Civil War. Every war has a winner. You gotta, pick a side. Who's going to win this one?" So, whether you love Joss or hate him, that happened because of him. And Steve. The last few issues of Civil War were kind of weird because Steve always had a little gizmo in his palm that Nick Fury gave him that was like short-circuited all Iron Man's armor. And if it happened once, that's kind of cool. It happened at least twice, maybe 3 times. So he does that in the final battle, knocks out Iron Man's armor. He's pummeling him. And all of a sudden, all the paramedics and EMTs and firefighters, cops on the scene tackle Steve Rogers and say, "No, don't do it to him," which was kind of terrible. But yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, I'm not going to like I said, we can have a whole show where we talk about the ups and downs.
Yeah,
so there's that.
Rom, yay! Let's just go yay for
Yes,
Rom.
Rom. Let's hoist a flag in for our good friend Bill Mantlo
just true.
and all the great stuff he did with Rom.
Indeed. Jacob, do you want to talk about MOTU, or is that another show too?
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Masters of the Universe some other time. Let's keep this Rom centric. Because boy, do I have stuff to talk about Masters of the Universe.
All right, fair enough. What's the status of Rom in comics these days? He doesn't have a current series, right?
I do not believe Rom is currently in any comics. Not even he hasn't even been introduced or discussed for the new Energon series that is currently being produced.
Okay, so all right, that's a bummer. But as we said, folks, if you want to find the ROM Omnibus, it's on Comixology, Amazon right now. $50 for digital form, or spend twice that and get it in physical, which is nice because you don't always own the digital copies you get from Amazon. So it's nice to have something physical they can't take away from you. So
physical media, people, get into it.
Physical media, yeah. My wife bought a bunch of movies on Prime a few years ago, and then she found out she didn't actually own the movies. She owned the rights to stream the movies on Prime. And when Amazon had legally fell out with the rights holders of those movies, oh, sorry, you can't watch them anymore. Don't let that happen to your comics. So Michael Mendoza says, Romnibus. Indeed, sir. Good to see you back in the comments. Romnibus.
I can't say I was the person who coined that phrase.
I believe it was Mr.
I'd like
Kinson.
to be the person who coined the phrase.
Yeah.
But I doubt I am.
That was our friend, Mr. Steve Kenson, who would have been on this podcast, but he's caring for his sick parents who are dealing with COVID right now. So hope that works out, Steve.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I believe we have covered the subject of ROM on the Romnibus and ROM comics from all angles. So anybody want the last word?
If you enjoy content like this, please support the Banff Podcast Patreon.
Or you can buy us a coffee or just send us good thoughts, because people never actually back the Patreon or send us a Ko-fi. So,
Please back the Patreon.
Yeah.
$1 a month. $1 a month.
Yeah, that's all it takes to. We should start selling like tote bags, because it sounds like we're empty over here right now. So, Russ,
buy a T-shirt.
Yeah, I support the BAM podcast. I've been on here a lot, and I'm looking forward to being on here again. So check out Fainting Goat Games also, which is Mike's gaming company. Check out Star Anvil Studios, which is mine, and check out Jacob's stuff. Again, it is Superpowered Legends, or if Jacob has another link,
Rogue Genius Games.
Rogue Genius Games. There you go.
Nice. So many genius studios with the name Genius in their title.
Well, that's because there's a lot of geniuses in gaming. But, the Rogue Genius is Owen K.C. Stevens. The Owen K.C. Stevens.
Except no substitutes. We'll only get genuine Owen K.C. Stevens. None of that fake Owen K.C. Stevens that you can, buy at the gas station. Get the real Owen K.C. Stevens. So,
Indeed.
And that's all I got, so...
All right, fair enough. All right, folks, thanks for checking out the Banff podcast. And wait, one last comment. What we got? $100 month gets you a ROM analyzer. Watch out for tiger baits.
That's right.
If you back the Patreon at $100, I will build you a ROM analyzer out of cardboard, wood scraps, and duct tape in my garage, and hand deliver it to you. Or I might just mail it, but one of the two. So, my promise to you. All right, folks, thanks for checking out the Banff podcast. We will see you next time. And